What it did is it prevented that reactive hypoglycemia response, where I later learned what was happening was your prefrontal cortex, which is, the front part of your brain, it literally goes offline. If you have that sharp blood sugar drop, it goes offline, and then you're in your reptilian brain that's like, I want this now. You no longer have access to logic, thinking it through. Oh no, that's not a good idea because of this. Remember your why, play the tape through, all of those things that we do, right? Pick up the phone, call your sponsor, it's gone. It's not even there.
Thanks for tuning in to the Elevation Recovery Podcast, your hub for addiction recovery strategies, hosted by Chris Scott and Matt Finch.
Thank you so much for joining us on episode 216 of the show. My name's Matt Finch, and today's episode features our very special guest, Chris Engen of Nutrition for Recovery at nutrition4recovery.com. Chris has helped hundreds of people successfully use amino acids to curb their cravings for alcohol, sugar, and other substances and addictive behaviors. Chris is board certified in holistic nutrition, and she holds a nutrition consultant certificate from Bauman College in Holistic Nutrition and Culinary Arts. She also holds an advanced certification as a recovery nutrition coach for nutritional therapy and amino acid therapy from the Academy for Addiction and Mental Health Nutrition. Chris is also a past board member and currently on the advisory board for the Alliance for Addiction Solutions, and she loves sharing her passion for health and the beautiful life that comes with being properly nourished from real food with anyone who wants to change their life. Some of the offerings on nutrition4recovery.com are Chris's courses, such as Amino Acid Therapy online course, her programs Eat Real Food and Whole New You Elimination Diet, and her services Advanced Amino Acid Therapy, Holistic Weight Management, and Fueling for Performance, and even Amino Acid Therapy Consulting for practitioners. Chris donates 5% of her income to She Recovers at sherecovers.co. And in this episode, you're about to learn so much great information on nutritional therapies and amino acid therapy and much more. And Chris says that none of this is medical advice. It's just for informational use only. And without further ado, now let's hear from our very special guest, Chris, the founder of Nutrition for Recovery and the Amino Acid online course now available. Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking me. It's an honor to be here.
Right on. And you and I both share a huge passion for nutrition, and we'll get into where yours came from, how long you've had it, and all the great recovery nutrition coaching certifications, advanced certifications. You got quite an interesting dynamic background. When I was in junior college, Mesa Junior College here in San Diego, I think I was 19, and I was taking an introduction nutrition course. It looked really exciting. I was like, oh, that looks awesome. I was into taking care of my body. I was a surfer, and I forget her last name, but my professor's name was Christina, and she actually kind of looked similar to you. I swear, like a lot of the nutrition people kind of like, I don't know, just like bright and bubbly, just positive, but she reminded me a lot of you. And the one thing that I remember from that class, everything else I forget as far as what happened in the class. But there was this one week, I think it was the first week actually, and she was teaching us about all these different things that were healthy for you. But then she would almost always say, but if you take too much, it can give you diarrhea. And she would just say, I'm like, this lady's obsessed with diarrhea. It was just so bizarre, but that kind of catapulted my love for nutrition. Unfortunately, I didn't start eating healthy consistently until probably my late 30s, and it was such a huge key for me. But for you, I think we should start off basically where you fell in love with nutrition, how you got into helping the population with addictions and mental health disorders, because it's not really for everyone. There's not many addiction professionals that in the United States, period. And so I'm always curious to work with people with addictions and mental health. You really have to be passionate about it. Otherwise, the people that aren't going to last. They burn out quick. This is not what I thought it was going to be.
Yes.
And they leave. So I'll
Yes.
just open it up with that. And thanks again for being here.
Okay, sure. So I was in a marketing advertising business for at least, I think, overall 25 years. And I loved it. However, I always had this love of nutrition and fascination with it. So even when I wasn't in this field, I was always reading about nutrition. That's the first article I would ever read. I'm going to date myself, in a magazine. Um, yes. And then same with psychology. I was always very interested in psychology. So as I was researching just for my own, knowledge and passion, I stumbled upon the term nutrient therapy or nutritional therapy, which was all brand new to me. And I thought, oh my gosh, I never thought about it like that, because I'd always thought about nutrition as, weight loss. Even even at that time, it's interesting to me that when I was in school, so I went back to school in 2016 for this full-on second career. And when I was in school, I remember thinking that, sort of like what you said, I did have the one nutrition class in college. And I remember all they just wanted us to eat rice and beans. We'll get to
At
that later.
UC Santa Barbara, good Mexican food up there, right?
Yes, UC Santa Barbara. Yes, there are lots of Mexican food and lots of rice and beans. I remember Freebird's burritos, if anyone listening knows about that. Um, but and some other things in Santa Barbara, of course.
Partying.
Yeah, Isla Vista. Yes, yes. So I was, like I said, always interested in that. I was always interested in psychology. When I got into school, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, and I never realized that. I just never really thought about it, and I don't think a lot of people do, that everything you eat, you hear you are what you eat, that everything you eat literally makes up who you are. Literally. It's every cell in your body. It's constantly changing. And in 7 years, you are literally a whole new person. And that was like, whoa, I need to learn more about this, because I was more of a background of growing up. My parents dieted a lot, and it was important to be thin, and so I definitely did not. I thought I was eating healthy, but I was not. It was all the sugar-free, fat-free, how low calorie can you go? I wasn't looking at nutrients. I was looking at calories only. So that experience of being in school was absolutely fabulous. It was Bowman College of Holistic Nutrition and Culinary Arts in Berkeley, California. I actually went to school. Wow. And from there, so I myself was at that time struggling to quit drinking. And I was a binge drinker. I was not an everyday drinker, never, because I'm a triathlete, and it's important to me to get up and work out and feel good, and I'm always very health conscious. So the fact that I would go long stretches of time between drinking, but the fact that I couldn't seem to stop once I started on the binge, that led to terrible consequences and poor decision making and all of that. So I was trying to quit, and it was a mystery to me. Like, I really, I tried the 12-step programs. I went to every therapy there is, pretty much. DBT, which is awesome. DBT, CBT, CPT, you name it. I went to it, seeking safety. And so I had all this knowledge in my head, and I was trying to figure out why. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And I also, have a relationship with God. So I would pray, and it was, just pray for, like, please help me. So you know where I'm going with this. So
yeah. Spiritual, in my opinion, just quick, then I'll let you proceed. I don't think there's anything on this planet more powerful than spiritual intention. Mm-hmm. So then you found
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I can talk about that more too. But so the nutrition, it was like, wait a minute. I figured out why I kept relapsing. And the reason, first and foremost, was that I would not eat. I was still doing this kind of restrictive eating and dieting, and then I wouldn't eat. And then if I craved alcohol and I
Oh.
drank, yeah, on an empty stomach, it would just be, on. And then I was always trading calories for alcohol too. That's something in college. I mean, that's not unusual, but to carry it on, throughout your life, it's not a good idea. And it's never a good idea. So that set me up for getting, I mean, the amount I drank, to be honest, and it's you're not supposed to compare, and that gets me into trouble when I get that amnesia of maybe I didn't have a problem, right? But it looked different than other people in terms of even the quantities and what I chose to drink. So when I found out about nutrition, I learned about uh, so much. I mean, so protein, the importance of eating protein spaced out to keep, within 3 4 hour intervals throughout the day, at least half body weight in grams. Animal protein, I respect anything anybody wants to do, but animal protein has the all of the amino acids, and it's linked to lower levels of anxiety and depression. And I learned that in school, and I it what it did is it prevented that reactive hypoglycemia response, where I later learned what was happening was your prefrontal cortex, which is, the front part of your brain, it literally goes offline. If you have that sharp blood sugar drop, it goes offline, and then you're in your reptilian brain that's like, I want this now. And you no longer have access to logic, thinking it through, oh no, that's not a good idea because of this. Remember your why, play the tape through, all of those things that we do, right? Pick up the phone, call your sponsor, it's gone. It's not even there. So that was huge to learn that. Just how to combine healthy fat, protein, and complex carbohydrates, what the ideal plate looks like, to not chase all of these fad diets that people, they think they're healthy when they're doing keto. And the one that kills me is the intermittent fasting. And I know that's got a lot of really good uses if someone has, it's like epilepsy or, very serious hypoglycemia or diabetes. But to just do it because it's a diet is actually the worst thing anybody in recovery could do. I've had clients turn it around just by eating breakfast in the morning, eggs, avocado, and like a piece of toast. So, I mean, I could talk about those were, pertaining to recovery, those things. And then also learning about food allergies and intolerances. And that's like a buzzword now, I think. Mm-hmm. But that's another thing. People think gluten-free is healthy. And it's like, if you are intolerant to gluten, then yes, it's healthy. But it's not, a simple trick to lose weight. And then I see people buying the keto bread in Costco the other day. They're like, oh, this is healthy. It's like, are you doing keto? Because if you're not doing keto, it's actually not, right? So I could keep talking.
I'm sure you could talk on this for hours. Have you seen the documentary by Michael Pollan, In Defense of Food? There's this one section where he says about when you go to the grocery store, all the stuff on the outside that doesn't really have any marketing or very little marketing. He said the foods that have to do the loudest marketing on the packages, those are the ones that an apple doesn't have to tell you how good it is, right?
Right.
Ribeye doesn't, the grass-fed ribeye, it's not screaming out all these different benefits. Then you get to the middle of the store, all the aisles, and it's like reduced fat, reduced salt, no sugar, this, that, and the other. And I loved that documentary because so many people saw it. And
Mm-hmm.
with the hypoglycemia, I was just like you regarding binge drinking. There was like twice where I was physiologically dependent, but those started from binges that went on too long. And I had hypoglycemia when I was a teenager, and I was really skinny. I had a really fast metabolism back then, and I was exercising all the time. I was bodyboarding and surfing. Most of my diet was sourdough bread toasted with butter, uh, white bagels toasted with cream
Mhm.
cheese or butter, uh, smoothies with orange juice, bananas, and frozen strawberries, and maybe a little bit of vanilla yogurt.
Yeah.
Bean and cheese and rice burritos, which was probably one of the better things because at least that was good for the hypoglycemia. So when I got into alcohol in my early 20s and I still had that diet, I would I would get so hypoglycemic symptoms when I would go even like 3 or 4 hours. At one point, my metabolism was so fast, I would eat a huge meal, and like an hour later, I'd start getting hungry again. And my family and all my friends would just make fun of me because, gosh,
Mhm.
dude, that must be it was a chore, it was expensive, it was a hassle. Meanwhile, I wasn't gaining any weight because my metabolism, my my body type, and the foods that I was choosing. I was not getting lots of protein. I was raised by my parents in a household where they didn't eat red meat. We'd have some fish and turkey and chicken here and there, but it was
Mhm.
mostly things like, tofu and broccoli and rice cakes and brown rice. And so they were saying like meat is bad, meat is bad.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, okay, so I didn't even have a taste for red meat. Then I started binge drinking when I got into alcohol. And I liked drinking on an empty stomach. My friends would be eating and stuff, and
Right.
I didn't wanna eat any food because I was alcohol-induced hypomania, giving me energy and confidence, and then I didn't want to eat. And for years and years and years, going to AA, trying other things, trying just Valium and marijuana to stay away from alcohol. So it wasn't until I started to learn about hypoglycemia and alcohol and that relationship, glutamine and magnesium and
Mhm.
protein and healthy fats and carbs and, eating throughout the day. So I think some people are definitely resonating with this so much about this hypoglycemia causing binge drinking. And then, when people are stressed out in their life too, you had stress with the hypoglycemia, alcohol on an empty stomach. Woo wee.
Yeah.
Binge drinking is crazy because you were like a ticking time bomb. You'd be not drinking for weeks or months or who knows how long.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, you'd just get the inclination to drink. You'd forget all the past, only remember the good stuff. Then all of a sudden, you were on a binge, and after you've probably done so great to get your health back and all this, and then boom, here you are on another binge.
Exactly. It's such a the word demoralizing, it's just such a demoralizing cycle. Um, it was really reassuring for me to learn that it actually has nothing to do with willpower, and I'm sure you can relate to that. It's for myself, I mean, high achieving. I graduated cum laude from college. I was magna cum laude from high school,
Wow.
4.3 GPA, full scholarship, successful triathlete, tons of promotions in my job careers over the years. Really, just anything I wanted to do, I feel like I could do it, except quit drinking. I mean,
Mhm.
so that's the baffling part, and I even had people say things like that to me, like, why can't you just get this thing? And so, that'll lead me to the next piece of the nutrition part here, which is that was the thing I was really curious about. And so I used myself and just in school thinking, okay, first I learned about the hypoglycemia, like you, drinking on the empty stomach, which side note, I remember thinking I've not never used any hard drugs or anything, but that's almost like I would think like putting a needle in your arm would be like, do you know what I mean? Drinking on the empty stomach, because you want it like that. And then it
Yeah.
happens like that. Um, so anyway, so in school learning about amino acids and amino acid therapy. So when I was in the mental health section of the nutrition course, that's when I learned about GABA, serotonin, the catecholamines, endorphins, and how that affects, those are the chemical messengers in your brain that are responsible for all of the decisions that you make and behaviors and feelings. Um, and that was, I mean, I'd always kind of heard of them, but I didn't really know much about it. And so this was this whole field that just it really opened my eyes to what can be done with food and specifically also with supplements.
It sounds like your nutrition course, when you went back to school, gave you the same light bulb aha moment that I had when I first read two books. End Your Addiction Now, the proven nutritional supplement program that can set you free by Dr. Charles Gant, and then
Uh-huh.
the Mood Cure by Julia Ross. So
The
here
house.
I was in school to become a certified chemical dependency counselor at the time. Meanwhile, we were an alternative holistic school too. But even in a holistic medicine school, we still weren't learning about amino acid therapy or anything like that. We were learning cognitive behavioral therapy, theories of counseling, group
Mm-hmm.
counseling, drug pharmacology, and physiology. And so I was so hungry, like you, like so interested and passionate about this, and I wasn't getting as much knowledge at school as my brain was hungry for. So those are the light bulb moments I had. Then I was like, holy moly, this is just, people need to know this stuff. This is phenomenal. Um, the fact that we have our own endogenous neuropharmacy that already creates all these neurochemicals, these mood boosting chemicals,
Yes.
these drugs and alcohol and even foods, certain foods, are artificially stimulating in amounts that we weren't designed to handle. That analogy or that metaphor that you were talking about, I forget what it is, where drinking on an empty stomach is like putting a needle. As someone that used to snort pills, oxycodones and oxycontins and other pills, I can say yes. As far as those fast hit, when I was doing alcohol like that,
Mm-hmm.
woo, you could chug a beer on an empty stomach and all of a sudden you're in a crazy different euphoric state. And I'd like you to explain this process because I don't have it down good. But I remember reading this article online where it was saying how when someone's repeatedly using alcohol and they're hypoglycemic, I remember seeing a chart to where, say, two people are side by side. One person's hypoglycemic and one is not. They're not hypoglycemic. They both drink a beer at the same exact time. The person that's hypoglycemic, their blood sugar shoots up faster. And then it also, when they're done drinking the alcohol, it shoots down way faster. And when someone does that process that's hypoglycemic repeatedly, it,
Mm-hmm.
it, it like brings them down, it drops them so low. Then there's some like HPA access stuff going on and the super stress response. So I'm probably butchering some of it, but I think this process right here for people to know brings away the shame and the guilt because they're then all of a sudden they're realizing such a big huge part of this is biochemical physiological.
It absolutely is. I'm jotting down some notes as I'm talking to you because I have so much I could talk about. Um, so that phenomenon that you described for the one person that's hypoglycemic and the other one isn't. So it is as you just said, your blood sugar goes up when you eat something that's like a straight carbohydrate. The best way to eat is to combine full fat, not low fat, protein, and um, a complex carb, something with fiber. But if you can't do all three, at least you want to have the fiber in there because you want something you want you want your blood sugar to, there's something called the glycemic index and the glycemic load that I could talk more about, but the foods that are lower load basically are the ones that will not cause your blood sugar to go up, and then it crashes. So the crash piece, yes, people who are hypoglycemic can't handle that crash. That's what then you get a surge of adrenaline actually that feels like a craving, and you also then your pancreas is taxed because it has to release insulin over and over and over again if that phenomenon keeps happening.
Mm.
So, and then you mentioned a couple books, and I believe where I read this the first time was Joan Matthews Larson, The 7 Weeks to Sobriety. But over time, her statistic was, I think 60. It might have been more than 60. Okay, now I'm messing it up. It was a large, might have been 80%. I need to
80 or
check.
90%
Perhaps
probably, huh?
80 or 90% of alcoholics are hypoglycemic. And it's just, again, it's just such an aha moment for people to realize that if they can eat, add some protein to whatever carb you want to eat. I'm not saying don't eat carbs, but that really can help. Carry food in your car. For me, at least, I've got 3 kids, so I'm always driving around and stuff. And I literally carry food with me. I carry my protein with me because I could easily end up skipping a meal. And that's one of my number one triggers. Another interesting thing is that we end up craving what we're allergic to. And that's a huge aha too. And there's so much I could say about that. But as it relates to alcohol, I know, like, the listeners are probably, some are in AA, some are not in AA. But the one thing that stood out to me in that program was the 3 parts: the spiritual malady, mental obsession, and a physical allergy. That's the 3, that's, and that's mind, body, spirit, right? So those 3 things. But the fact that even in 1935 or whatever, they deemed it a physical allergy. And there's parts in the book also that talk about that, how our bodies are different, our brains are different from other people's, and it is an allergy. So to look at it, for me, what really helped kind of remove the stigma, because there is a lot of shame and, like, why me? What? I don't want to. I want to have fun. You have to reframe fun. But it just that it would be like having, if you have diabetes, you have to take insulin. If you have cancer, most people go through a round of chemo. It's just like that. It's like we have to take care of ourselves so we don't relapse. So we put ourselves in remission. And so amino acids, when you mentioned Julia Ross, and I speak with Julia on a pretty regular basis. Absolutely love her work. And that's what led me to becoming a certified recovery nutrition coach. And I did the advanced training also with Christina Veselak at the Academy for Addiction and Mental Health Nutrition. Wonderful, wonderful class. I just gobbled it up. And that was 2 full years also of learning how amino acids work in your body to relieve cravings, how it works, how to trial amino acids with my clients, how to decide where, based on Julia Ross's, she has a symptom chart that for every neurotransmitter system, there are symptoms, right? So and you mentioned dopamine for you, or the energy for drinking. So interestingly, I'm like that too. And that's a little unusual. I won't say it's totally unusual, but alcohol crosses all the neurotransmitter systems. So, so like it's everywhere. It's the most available drug, and it will give people energy. It will make people relax. It's an escape mechanism. It crosses all of it. So gosh, what are we supposed to do? So for some people, they can say right away when I ask them, what are you using it for? What are you using alcohol for? And they almost always have a first answer, right? I'm numbing out. So, okay, that's a clue. Why are you using that drug, and what does it do for you? So that helps me understand what neurotransmitter system is potentially depleted. And especially in early recovery, though, there's always a lot of people need all of the amino acids, right? But the primary, where to start would be, what does it do for you?
I love this so much. And my co-host, Chris Scott, who he interviewed Julia Ross. I interviewed her years ago when we first started the podcast, before we transitioned to do video as well. But Chris got her on video, and it's got thousands and thousands of views now. It was so awesome. There was so many little clips that I remember that were so powerful. My favorite one was, and I'll paraphrase, but Julia said, most people don't even don't even really know who they are because they've never been on a nice high protein diet with all the neurotransmitters good and amino acids. She said once your brain is like biochemically balanced like that, you got the optimal neurotransmitters. She's like, then you find out who you really are, and then you really get to live life as your true self. And that's
Mhm.
the experience that I had when I got into amino acids by accident. Because when I was coming off heroin and Xanax and alcohol, pretty much any drugs I could get my hands on, I was going through post acute withdrawal.
Mhm.
And I'd been through pause so many times, and I always relapsed during pause because I never started to feel better. It'd be
Mm.
months and months, and I was just like, gosh. So I just was always using substances, not necessarily because I wanted to escape, although I did do it a lot to do that, but really because I wanted to just feel good. Like everyone else seemed to like they were comfortable, confident in their own skin. I'm probably wrong about that. A lot of people were probably hurting on the inside, but so
Right.
my brother's mother, he's got a different mother than me, my older brother. They knew I was coming off all these substances. So from up in Northern California, north of San Francisco, Marin County,
Mhm.
she sent me down a box, her and my brother, of these supplements by Apex Energetics. One was called Dopatone and one was
Okay.
called Gabatone. So Dopatone had macunapirians, DLPA,
Mhm.
L-phenylalanine, and B6. And then Gabatone had lithium orotate, passion flower, valerian, and B6. And I
Ooh.
was taking probably, 3 capsules of each, 3 or 4 times a day on an empty stomach. Chris, within a few days, all of a sudden my post-acute withdrawal symptoms were going away. I was feeling better and better. These nutrients were giving me dopamine and GABA
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
endorphin and brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And then the lithium orotate was like this mood stabilizer. And so I was in school at the time, and my classmates, my peers and I quit drinking caffeine and I was lowering sugar at the time too. They were saying, "You seem so mellow and so much more balanced." And that
Mhm.
was my first I had taken supplements in the past for hypoglycemia, for acne, for all sorts of things going on, but I had never got into this amino acid therapy for addiction recovery, and I was just like, "Wow, what's in this stuff?" I didn't even know what those nutrients were, I was just taking them.
That is amazing. I love that. I was like, I mean, jotting down the name. Those ingredients in each of those supplements you described are perfect, spot on. Especially as you just the what did you call it?
Dopatone and Gabatone. There's also that company also makes a serotonin, and
Mm-hmm.
they got so many different products. The unfortunate thing about that company is they used to be about half the price. In the past few years, their price skyrocketed.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
Well, so on that, yes. So each of those, I understand why they named the supplement blends as
Mhm.
they did. It makes sense if you were using alcohol and other drugs for energy. That yes, you would need to. You're likely depleted in dopamine, so the dopatone.
Dopatone, yeah.
What I do so is a little different. In my training, and Julia Ross 10,000% teaches this, that we use individual targeted aminos, at least at first. And that's because we want to know how you respond to that specific amino. And there are basically 5 that are used. And there's a trialing process where your body actually tells you how much you need. Um, People are always kind of amazed at that. They're like, how many can I take? And on the bottle, usually the dose is, it's like anything. The dose is they have to be really general about it. But what I do is I walk my clients through, they write down their symptoms, they write down what they crave, which is also another clue, because obviously it helps with craving. And they rate it on a scale of 0 to 10, so it kind of puts this little picture together. Um, and by interpreting that, if somebody is, so if you're depleted in dopamine, which would be the catecholamines, dopamine, adrenaline, noradrenaline. So it's that slow, sluggish, apathetic depression, lack of drive, lack of energy. Dopamine's the spark of life. And so people who don't have that spark, and to do that, rather than using a blend, I would look at tyrosine, and I would look at DLPA to a lesser extent, just plain LPA. But there's always precautions too, where I have a whole grid of, different conditions that if a person has this condition, you have to be a little cautious. So for instance, with the tyrosine, it would be any thyroid issues, which is kind of common too, or Hashimoto's. Then you just start really low and slow. So with the trialing, starting at the lowest dose recommended either by me or probably on the bottle, but if someone's really sensitive to amino acids, they should actually break it in half. You should break it in half anyway. You should always break them open because they absorb better straight on your tongue. But if you want to cut down the dose, and then I have some people that take one fingertip, and I have some people that take 6 at a time. That's how different it is. Yeah, me too. Not anymore. Now I take 3. Tyrosine is like my favorite. But so people do this trialing where they start at the lowest dose and then wait 5 to 10 minutes and see if they feel a shift in a change. And so, as you said, it just works right away. So if it doesn't work, then if you don't feel anything, then you take another dose and you wait. Then you take another dose and you wait, and you just keep on going until you feel the shift, whether it's the energy because you're trialing tyrosine, or you feel relaxed because you're trying GABA or theanine. So your body responds immediately. So it's not like obviously Western medicine and SSRIs and benzos and that kind of thing. Well, benzos work right away. Sorry.
They sure do.
You use GABA. Yeah, but it doesn't have to build up in your system. It just works. So I love, all of that. And then lithium orotate, excellent nutrient, and I'll trial that separately with people. It's a little more subtle, but it's like you said, it's a mood stabilizer. It can shift people into a good mood. And then if it doesn't work, I always say there's always a plan B. So I have, I know where to start based on an intake and understanding the person's chart and their health history. And actually, I just put together a course so I don't have to continue to do these intakes over and over again, and it's more affordable for people because it's a pretty specific, it's a very specific method that I go through, that I've gone through for the last almost 3 years. I can't believe it, of recommending amino acids to people and watching them change their lives. And it's fabulous. And like you said, it's unbelievable to me that it is not practiced in rehabs. Medical doctors don't really know about it. It's really frustrating. It's frustrating. I'm in a lot of online groups too, of course, Facebook groups and that kind of thing for people struggling to quit drinking. And then I'm not allowed to post. You can't engage or self-promote. So then I try to just give advice. I get the word out as much as I can. And through an organization called She Recovers, I'm actually donating 5% back to them for the work that they do. So for anyone who's a woman or identifies as a woman, it's a wonderful resource, sherecovers.com. So what I was going to say something else about that. Where was I going with that?
I don't know, but I have some questions if you have one.
Yeah. Okay, what are your questions?
Well, I remember, and I'm not going to talk much about hypoglycemia, but regarding the biochemical aspect to alcoholism, to addiction, if I remember correctly, the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill and Dr. Bob, or Bob and Dr. Bill, two founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, one of them was a doctor. They were both alcoholics. They were doing these studies and finding around 80 to 90% of the people that were alcoholics had hypoglycemia. They were studying this stuff maybe in the, I don't know if it was the 60s or the 70s, I'm not sure, but in the past, and they were doing this research. But the first time I ever got asked to lead a AA meeting, I think I was 24 at the time, and I had been going for a month. Uh, my topic as the leader was nutrition, exercise, and supplements.
Oh.
Not only did nobody share on that topic, but I had at least 4 or 5 people like tell me that wasn't appropriate
Mm.
because it didn't have to do with any of the AA literature. And then come to find out years and years after that, it was actually a big part of what the founders wanted the program to become. And you were talking about how it's frustrating that a lot of the doctors, most of the doctors don't know unless they're, addiction medicine physicians that also are into this stuff, which there's not that many addiction medicine physicians in America as is. And then the ones that know about nutrient repair, biochemical restoration are even lower. But then the rehab facilities, why the heck would they want to incorporate anything that's going to get people better? Because their whole model is based on knowing that a lot of people are going to relapse. That's their whole, they make way more money billing insurance and cash pay, whatever. They make more money when people continue to relapse and slip. So there's not much money in the cure. There's not much money. The money is in, treating symptoms long term. That's where all the profits are at.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'll shut up.
That's interesting. I'm thinking about that. I guess I have not on it. I will tell you, I actually hadn't thought about it that way. So you're giving me food for thought on a couple things. So yeah, in the book, he started researching the use of niacin, B vitamins in alcoholics. Again, the physical allergy, it's in the doctor's opinion, the first part of the book, where I already mentioned that was what really resonated with me. That it is a physical allergy. It is, and it kind of doesn't matter at the end of the day. I used to hate saying the word alcoholic, and you don't really have to. It's just, if which is step one, which is, you admit it, and then you can, they say that's the only step you really need to do. But I will say, the nutrition piece it's the missing piece. We all know that, right? And for people to be able to make choices and stay in the program, right? So if you are a person that goes to a 12-step program or have a spiritual practice or go to therapy or whatever, whatever your other tools are, if your brain is not online, how are you going to remember to do any of those tools? You're not going to be able to walk yourself through the whole chain of anxiety or do DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. So, and that's a great therapy. It's kind of complicated, especially if you're in early recovery. It's like, oh my God, this is a lot. So, but in AA, yeah, in the Living Sober book, I'm pretty sure it says to eat candy.
What book is this? Living Sober.
Oh yeah, it's a kind of a companion book. You've never heard of that?
Oh,
okay. Yeah,
there's a candy, huh?
There's a chapter that says, yeah, go ahead and eat candy if you have cravings. And then of course there's always the coffee and the sweets and the sugar. And definitely I hear all the time, not even just in AA, but again, there's so many different Facebook groups for people who want to quit drinking. It's unbelievable right now. And the advice often is eat the ice cream, eat the cookies, eat the cake. And I don't want to, it's a little dangerous. It's a little dangerous. Ideally, a person would just not have sugar. And there's plenty of low glycemic sweeteners a person can have. Once you cut sugar out, processed sugar, you start to realize how sweet fruit is, right? You start to realize the natural sweetness of foods. Even vegetables are sweet. But when we're eating 100% processed sugar all the time, and artificial sweetener, also, by the way, like 10,000 times sweeter than regular sugar, it perpetuates it. So just eating sugar-free with artificial sweetener like aspartame or any of the sugar alcohols, which is terrible for your gut, terrible, that's not helping recovery. I mean, I can see how in the beginning, yes. I mean, of course, if it's a choice between a cookie or a drink, have the cookie, have the cookie. Um, and then just the nutrition piece, though, to be able to learn how to actually eat in recovery, that should be taught at the rehab centers. And I did work at I'm losing track of days because it's 2020 was so weird, right? So it must have been 2018. Oh my gosh, I don't even know. Yeah, wow. So in 2018, I uh, did get a position as a contractor to do amino acid therapy at a local rehab, 6-bed men, um, and a very forward-thinking director at the time hired me, and I was successfully giving amino acids to uh, the clients. They were seeing huge benefits. Again, with the chart I keep referring to, their symptoms were steadily going down. It was just beautiful to watch. And then I got laid off.
Oh, yeah.
So, right? It just wasn't deemed as important as the sound box therapy or something. There was some other thing they wanted to bring in, and I can't remember. It was something else that they wanted to bring in. You know, they had the yoga, and the frustrating thing there also was that while I was doing amino acid therapy and I was teaching nutrition for recovery weekly, I had a weekly session instructing, all about the macronutrients, which I've already mentioned, fat, carbs, and protein, but also the micronutrients, which are so important because those are cofactors for all of the chemical reactions in our body, including converting the amino acids to neurotransmitters. So you need to have specific cofactors, specifically zinc, vitamin B, vitamin C, magnesium's huge for people in recovery. So again, I could talk about that a lot more too, but it was just, I would teach nutrition. We would literally, I would finish and then they would bring in the food, which was like crap. I'm like, oh my God, now I need to talk to the cook because I'm teaching one thing, but now they're feeding them something else. And they're feeding them the other food because it's like, going on the big Costco trip. And I don't know how much I should say because I was going to say something about the owner, but I'm not going to. They, nobody, so if you, so the struggle there, from my side of how I saw things is that everybody has to be educated. So even though this one person who hired me and saw what I was doing and believed in it, what can she do when the owner, the person who's in charge, doesn't understand and doesn't believe it, right? So I'd open the refrigerator and there'd be margarine. I mean, that's trans fat. That's like 1970s. There'd be, God, cookies and cake and the granola bars, like the heavily processed granola bars that are not nutritious. So I would teach the guys how to read labels, which is so eye-opening for so many people. Label reading, I would teach them. Yeah, I taught them everything, but then they'd be served food that wasn't what I was talking about. So, and that could have been, I mean, that's financial too, because, to eat healthy, it usually does cost more. I'm not going to lie about that, right? But when we think about all of the alcohol all that money we spend on alcohol or cigarettes or drugs and all of that, like the payback is so huge. You're saving the cost of it's your health, whatever illness you're going to have to pay for later in life to go ahead and buy. The priority really would be the protein, the organic, grass-fed, pastured. If people haven't ever tried a pastured organic egg versus a commercial egg, it's a huge difference. And then the vegetables and fruits, organic, the farmers come out with a list every year of the clean 50, what is it, clean 15, the dirty dozen and the clean 15. So the dirty dozen, just a quick Google search, 2021, it'll tell you the top 12 produce items that are the most contaminated, if you will. So they're the ones that you should buy organic. bananas don't need to be organic, avocados don't need to be organic because you're not eating the skin. So that's always useful. So it does cost a little more, but if you cook, it's fine. It's just the eating out part that gets hard.
I love all these things you're talking about.
Mhm.
And I've said this quote on here at least once before. I'll say it again. And it's something my mentor taught me in my mid 30s. He said, "You're going to pay for your health. You can pay for it now, or you can pay for it later in hospital bills and all these disorders you have and disease. You can either pay for your health now, or you can pay for it later."
Yeah. Yep.
And then I'll paraphrase a quote from Dr. Charles Gant too, regarding were these mind, body, spirit complexes. But then when you go to, the traditional recovery solutions, they can do a pretty good job, depending on the place, on the spirit and the
Mhm.
mind, but they're leaving out the body. And there's a quote in his book, I'll paraphrase. Let's see. Drugs are physical substances that cause physical changes to a physical organ, the brain. And how do we treat this physical organ chronic dysfunctions? With spiritual counseling and group therapy. But then they're leaving out the brain healing process.
I know.
And so it's
Yeah.
like people have these chronic brain physiology dysfunctions, chronic, long term, not acute, chronic brain physiology issues. Spirituality can change brain chemistry. Meditation and being in the group power, the group consciousness and
Mhm.
energy. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, if all it takes is a little bit of biochemical attention, just pay some attention to this, do this too. Then when you do the spiritual therapies and the counseling and the group support, then when you're also supporting your brain and your gut health and all these things that you are quite the expert in, my gosh, then as Julia and Christina have created their system, then when you got the three-legged stool, you're balanced sitting on a stool with three legs. When you're leaving out the biochemical aspect, you're on a two-legged stool. You're going to be imbalanced. You're going to fall over and relapse. So now's a perfect spot where people can learn this system, and you've created a course. Where can people learn more about you? What are the products and services that you have? And all that kind of stuff. What are any new projects you're excited about? Anything you want.
My business is called, quite appropriately, Nutrition for Recovery. And it's nutrition and number 4, recovery.com. Yes. And I do one-on-one amino acid therapy with people. For let me back that up. I created a course because over time, after working with so many people, I didn't want to have to keep repeating myself. This is a way I can reach more people with this, and it's less expensive for people. So it's a course that's like a step-by-step 10 modules on how to use amino acids for cravings, addiction, mental health. It all goes together. And it includes 2 calls with me, 2 20-minute calls, so I can make sure you're on the right track, and messaging through a secure HIPAA protected portal. Um, that's something I've refined over the last year, and I am very excited about it. I beta tested it on people and had really good results. So I'm excited to launch that actually just a couple days ago. And in addition, so that would be for if more complicated cases really are going to need the one-on-one intake, the health history, if someone's on a lot of pharmaceuticals or have serious health conditions and that kind of thing. I really would like to have more of a conversation. That said, people can always add calls onto the course if they want to start there. So that's the course is the big project I've been working on. And then another exciting thing is I've partnered with a functional medicine doctor who has virtual services. So I've been learning, I'm getting so much about functional medicine and interpreting labs, because the second piece of amino acid therapy, the way I look at it is the amino acid therapy is, it's almost like a, I mean, of course, it's going to help right away. And then if it doesn't help, that's a clue. And it's non-invasive, right? It's just trialing the amino acids. And if it doesn't help, then there's something else going on. And usually it's gut, which we haven't even, we could talk for hours and hours though, but gut health. So digging deeper into gut health, or as you said before, the HPA axis, we're looking at the stress response, adrenal function, thyroid function.
Wow.
So there's testing for all of that. There's also hormonal testing. There's also an allergy test that's excellent. And methylation genomics, which is another whole category with a lot of people have genetic SNPs, the MTHFR. Yeah. And so that can be corrected with nutrition, So I am learning and know a lot about all of those tests as well. And so I work through the functional medicine doctor. So I can always, I have a very great referral and people can see me through her. And one other thing is my Eat Real Food course, and that is live, and that's in September. I teach people from the beginning, how to set yourself up for success. We're going to look at organizing our pantry and make sure everything's visually there, learn how to read labels, learn how to meal prep, how to plan. I talk about gut health. I talk about digestion, which is gut health. I talk about blood sugar. For the recovery piece, it's gut, blood sugar, neurotransmitters. So in 5 live calls that are recorded, I'm actually doing that in the month of September, which is National Recovery Month. So is that
Nice.
enough?
Wow. Woo-wee.
I know.
So to anyone listening or watching, I don't know about you, but I've already seen Chris's website, but I'm going to go and her course info page, which looks totally phenomenal. I'm going to go peruse even more, and I recommend that you do as well. I'm guessing that course is around maybe $1,000 to $1,500 for all the stuff you were talking about. No?
Oh no, it's $297.
Oh my gosh, that's a steal.
Yeah.
That's a steal with 10 modules.
Yes.
Wow.
And 2 phone calls and messaging.
Wow, your pricing is so good.
I know. Well, it probably will. I will probably increase it. I just want it, so I need to see.
That sounds like at least a $997 program.
Yeah. Well, I already said it folks. Years, I can't change my mind right now, huh?
Yeah. So there you go, folks. You might as well go if it sounds like a good deal for you. That sounds like a great deal for me. $297, and you can get all 10 modules. Imagine what an expert you'll become learning all that stuff before the price in the future goes way up. Chris, thank you so much. This has been like, you and I could obviously talk for hours and hours about this stuff. And I love you've gone way further in training regarding the type of nutrition stuff, even in school and everything, traditional school, and with the advanced certification from the academy. So you were like the best person to bring on for this. It's such a huge topic. And so that's why you made your course, because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm teaching the same stuff over and over and over, one-on-one. How about I just create a video coaching program, 10 modules? That way people can get all of my knowledge, step by step at their own leisure, their own time, from any device with internet service. Phenomenal. Yep. So would you like to come on again, maybe in 6 months from now, something like that, to have you and me and Chris and someone else? We could have like a kind of round table episode. Yeah. Power hour.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Okay. I would love to.
All right, cool. That'll be fun. I'm planning a bunch for the next season coming up, season 12. We're starting to think about, instead of just having a guest and a host, or my co-hosts and I together, have 3 people, have 4 people on, and do kind of, just have more opinions, more feedback, more communication, more different personalities. So that'd be great. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful, I would love to. Yeah.
Right on. Thank you so much, and have a great day. It was so nice talking to you.
Okay, you too.